Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, John Bird, and I'm responsible for account development here at Infotools. Today, we are joined by Ed Keller, Executive Director of MRII, the Market Research Institute International. It is also the CEO of the Keller Advisory Group. He is widely recognized as one of the foremost experts in word of mouth, influencer marketing, and consumer insights. As both an entrepreneur in social data and analytics and a top executive in leading insights agencies, he has built and sold businesses. He's launched data and insights platforms and products. He's acquired and integrated businesses. He's managed global teams and worked with many of the world's largest brands. He is a sought-after board member and advisor for SaaS, data analytics, and MRX companies. Ed is an inductee into the Word of Mouth Marketing Hall of Fame, as well as the Market Research Hall of Fame. He was an ESOMAR Insight250 awardee in 2022 and an Insights250 judge in 2023. Ed has a Social Intelligence 50 honoree, and he was also in the Social Intelligence 50 honoree in 2023. The publication of his book, The Influentials, has been called the seminal moment in development of word of mouth. His second book, which is a clever play on words, the Face-to-Face book, Why Real Relationships Rule in a Digital Marketplace, was named the best book in marketing by the American Marketing Association, which is quite a thing to have, quite a good recommendation. So Ed, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
So there's a lot of accomplishments in your bio, and it's super impressive to have you on the show. But can you tell us a little bit more about the MRII?
Yeah, so I joined MRII as executive director in November of 2022, so approximately a year ago. It's quite a remarkable organization. MRII is a not-for-profit educational institute, and we offer online training and education courses for the market research profession. Our educational partner is the University of Georgia, which has quite a renowned master's in market research program. We work with the continuing education part of University of Georgia, and together we've trained over 10,000 learners from nearly 150 countries around the world. And what's a bit unique about MRII is a couple of things. Number one, as I mentioned, we are not-for-profit. We are actually started by the research industry for the research industry. So our founding association members are ESOMAR and the Insights Association. We focus on what we call the market research core body of knowledge. So our interest is in sort of what it takes in terms of the building blocks to be a really great market researcher and deliver market research excellence for people's companies. Some of the people who take our courses are interested in a comprehensive program, and for them we offer the full process of market research from beginning to end with a practical self-paced study covering 13 topics. This is not just sort of a 20-minute focus on this topic or that topic. These are extensive online self-paced courses. There's a design learning agenda. There's feedback that's given by way of quizzes and the like, and those topics range from study design to sampling to quantitative research, qualitative research methods, working with secondary data, data analysis, advanced analytics, communicating research results, and so on. So this is a really great comprehensive curriculum, maybe for somebody who's moving from one function within a corporation into another, and they want to really steep themselves in market research and to do it in a way that doesn't require them to go onto a campus and take a year or two to do that. So that's the core of who we are and what we do. We also then realize that not everybody needs that full spectrum, and maybe they want to learn something more. Maybe they've been a quantitative researcher their whole life, but now they want to learn about how to do qualitative research, or maybe they want to learn more about advanced analytics. And so for those people, we offer what we call Principles Express, where people can take advantage of one of our courses or two of our courses. They're still pretty comprehensive. Those courses take about 10 hours to complete. There's a very detailed curriculum that we're following, and so you can either take the full spectrum or you can take the individual courses, and that's what MRII is. We have quite an impressive volunteer board of directors who come from a combination of brands, of research providers, as well as some folks who have maybe sort of worked for brands, but now they're teaching at various universities. So we've got a nice spectrum, and it's a great organization, and the work that we do for the research community, I think, is quite impressive, and people who take our courses are quite happy with it.
No, it's impressive. So it is really impressive. So, thinking about how this industry changes so fast, and it seems like IA has been around for a while, but you think of all the change in the research industry and with all these different forces, such as research technology and DIY platforms, and overall the democratization of data. Do you still feel that focusing on research fundamentals is as important or as in demand?
It's a great question, and the short answer is I do. And I thought a lot about this as I was, thinking about joining as executive director. I wanted to think about the way our industry is changing, and the Insights Association just recently came out with its newest report, and the changes, continue to abound. Sort of the traditional, so-called traditional research companies are still a huge factor, but as a percent of the total, they're a bit on the decline, and the do-it-yourself platforms, social listening platforms, and the like are on the ascendancy. And to me, what this says is that there's more and more people who are coming into our space, the so-called democratization of data. More people with a do-it-yourself platform, or with certainly the ability to find things on demand on the internet. More and more people are using research, which is a great thing. Our industry grew by double digits in 2022, according to the latest figures, both from ESOMAR and the Insights Association. So the demand is there. And what I think is that the more people who are getting involved in research, the more of a need there is for somebody to say, hey, wait a second, I'm using this, but maybe I don't quite understand it as well as I need to. And so where can I go and get myself steeped and learn what I need to learn? And that's where we come into play. I also think that there are a growing number of people who maybe get moved into insights or analytics within a corporation. They came from some other function, and either they feel they need to upskill, or their companies feel like, hey, we need to train you. And honestly, I hear more and more from people who are with insights companies in the long distant path. If you started in an insights company, you often took a trainee program, and maybe it was 6 months long, maybe it was a year long. Those don't exist anymore. People get hired, and they need to learn on the job, and we're there to help them do that. So I like to think of the analogy as sort of if you're an improvisational jazz musician, and you hear them talk, often they're steeped in the classics. They're trained in classical music, and it's only when they know the music fundamentals that they're able to then do really great improvisational jazz. You got to know the rules in order to break the rules. And in our case, I think even with new technologies, to make research accessible to a wider group of practitioners than ever, knowing the fundamentals is vital. So the short and the long answer to your question is the answer is yes. And if I can just say one thing that I failed to mention, I talked about our courses, both the comprehensive courses and what we call the Principles express. I also want to say that we have a great partnership with ESOMAR, and once a month we have a webinar with ESOMAR. It's free for anyone who wants to participate, and we get people from a huge number of countries around the world, and I hope that listeners, if they're interested, might tune in for that as well. So to learn about the courses, you can go to marketresearchcourses.org, or you can go to the MRII website, which is mrii.org, and you'll also find there how to sign up for the not only for the courses but also for the webinars, and the webinars are available on demand as well.
Well, sounds like a great resource, and it's kind of a leading question, but I definitely feel that the foundation in market research is core, even more so with all the different tools out there. And I think we've all seen someone grab a new shiny object and say, "Oh my gosh, this is great," and then you realize, well, you're only talking to like 2 people, so you might not want to build a plant.
Look, I'm all in favor for innovation. I'm all in favor for trying new things by all means. But I think the more you can become steeped in what best practices are, I think the better off individuals are. I think the better off their companies are, and this is in part, I think, the reason why I mentioned that MRII was, is a not-for-profit. Our founding associations accept people who take our courses as part of certification programs. So we are endorsed by, and in fact, people from ESOMAR, the Insights Association, they sit on our board. The Canadian Research and Insights Council and TELUS Worldwide for healthcare, the QRCA, the Qualitative Research Consultants Association. These are all people who are sponsoring organizations for us. So we were, definitely developed by the industry, for the industry, and in conjunction with the highly esteemed University of Georgia. We provide training that we really think helps to create market research and insights excellence.
No, it's super important. I was talking to Melanie with the Insights Association. I just feel like that all these organizations have their own little, their own focus, but you're really looking across all of them and pulling all their kind of key learnings together. So let's shift gears a little bit. I do understand that the MRII recently, it's a mouthful, recently released some fascinating new research around for the love of learning, career development in a changing market research industry. Anything you'd like to tell us about that?
Yeah, we're really excited by the study that we launched, and I think a number of the results are fascinating. We do this kind of in keeping with our mission, and that was to provide learning that we think the industry can use. We conducted a global sample of market research and insights practitioners. We surveyed them to help the industry gain deeper understanding about the state of our profession. So the topics that we covered were things like the career paths, what got people into our industry. Everybody's got a different story about how they came here. Some people did it quite purposely, and many others just kind of found their way into our industry. So we explored that. We looked at job satisfaction of market research professionals. We looked at skill gaps and training opportunities for professionals, what the profession itself is telling us, and we gathered opinions about the state of market research as a whole. So these were all, we interviewed about 500 people, and it's quite an interesting piece of research. Again, it's available on our website. You can download it for free, MRII.org. But I'd be happy to go over some of the key findings with you if you'd like.
And I love bullet points, and I also love it when market research companies do market research.
There you go.
Often we don't. The cobbler's kids have no shoes. But yeah, I'd love to know some of the key findings and things that you thought were interesting.
Yeah, so there's quite a spectrum of things that we learned. So I'll just start with what I think is really the good news for those of us who have been in this profession maybe for a while and sometimes wonder, how happy are people in the profession. And the good news is that nearly 2/3 of the market research professionals that we surveyed tell us they're either very or completely satisfied with their jobs. I think that's quite a strong endorsement for our profession. And in fact, it reflects well. There was a recent study done by the Pew Research Center that looked at a representative sample of American workers and found that only half were highly satisfied with their jobs. So we're definitely above the benchmark there. It's pretty consistent across almost all the different subgroups that we looked at. 2/3 of those who work at market research agencies or consultants to the industry are highly satisfied. So are 60% of corporate researchers, people who work on the client or brand side. It's pretty consistent as well across job roles, whether you manage others or you're just an individual practitioner. The biggest gap is between the genders. 2/3 of males and 59% of females say they're very satisfied. So not a wide difference. It's not 80% for one and 20% of the other. But that was the biggest gap that we saw. To just look into this a little bit more, we presented this, just started presenting it at a few conferences, and sure enough, the first question that we usually get asked is something about sort of what distinguishes between people who are more highly satisfied and those who are less. So even though it is 2/3 who are highly satisfied, we've got 2/3 there. That means 1/3 or somewhat less than fully satisfied. So we started to look at, well, what are some of those things? Because I think that's kind of news you can use if you're working in a managerial position. What distinguishes the people in your company who are the most satisfied from those who aren't? So we can try to lift the satisfaction level across the board. And the biggest things include differences with the company's executive management. There's a 50-point gap there between people who are the most satisfied and those who aren't. The expectations set for work. This kind of gets at the whole area of communications, and are expectations clear and set for me? There's a 48-point gap there. But the biggest thing, which is quite relevant to our conversation today, was opportunities to learn and grow. Among those who are highly satisfied, it's 79% say that they're highly satisfied with that aspect of their job. If you're less than fully satisfied, only 33% say they're satisfied with opportunities to learn and grow. That's a gap of 46 points. So it means that the topic that we've been talking about, I think is highly relevant to people's career satisfaction. Everybody wants to contribute. They want to do what they're supposed to do, but they also want to have a chance to learn and grow. And often that means having the opportunity to upskill and get better at what they do for their own personal growth, and so they can contribute more fully to the companies that they're working for. Opportunities advancement was also a big area of difference. There's a 47-point gap there, and the level of communication from executive management, a 46-point gap. So those are the big 5 topics, but to our point and most relevant to this conversation, that opportunities to learn and grow really stood out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, some of these are pretty common, but it is interesting to see. I mean, if you kind of look at it, it's people want education so they can be contributing more to the organization. So obviously that plays well for you, but it's interesting. I mean, a lot of the communication
and
things
it's also in this whole sort of changing work environment that we operate in right now. People I think are still committed to the organizations, but they're also committed to themselves and how they feel as a professional, and they want to be able to learn, because it makes the job more fulfilling for them as well. And I think the companies that are confident and are willing to invest in people will reap the reward back from their employees.
Yeah, no, it seems like there are a fair number of people that are unemployed right now, and I feel like they're not. When I talk to them, I feel like their common theme is that they were not personally invested in, and that's maybe one of the reasons they were downsized or moved out. That's kind of interesting. Did you were there any were there any kind of interesting things that people want to learn more about? I mean, I'm assuming AI probably bubbled to the top, but just love to know.
Yeah, so that is a fascinating set of results. We did ask people, to tell us about the areas where they feel like they and their organizations would benefit from learning more. And AI is the thing that everybody's talking about today, and not surprisingly, a majority feel that they and their organizations would benefit from more training and development around AI. But it was not the number one item on the list, at least not yet. Number one on the list was data visualization. 56% say they would benefit from knowing more, and their organizations would benefit from knowing more about data visualization. AI and machine learning came in at number two at 51%, so a majority. Tied with that was advanced analytics, also at 51%. Text analytics and natural language processing, 45%. And then the subset of AI, generative AI, also at 45%. So those were the top five things that stood out. What was interesting to us is we kind of did a grid, and we asked people about things they'd like to learn more about, and we've matched that against the things that they feel they're already doing within their organization versus things that they're not doing very much of right now. So two of these areas, respondents say there's high current usage already, as well as a high degree of future interest, and that's data visualization and advanced analytics. So we're doing a lot of it now, people told us, but we also need training to get better at it. And I think that's a real reflection of the fact that it's, those two are dynamic areas. There's a lot of new things that are happening, and people, no matter how much they're doing already, they want to continue to get better at it. The other three were areas where the current usage is low, but the future interest is high. That was, again, the text analytics, the AI and machine learning, and generative AI. And then research automation fits into this category as well at just a slightly lower level. So a lot of areas that people want to know more about, and even the ones they're currently doing. I think the message here for management is you can't think, oh, we're already doing that, we don't need to invest anymore. No, people want to know more. There's a sort of a bar that people are always looking to climb higher and higher and get better and better at what they do.
Yeah, and there's so much data out there. I mean, there's so much data, it's overwhelming. And in my role, I mean, we're all about data and getting data into a way that folks can analyze it. But it's mind-boggling how much data is out there. Sometimes it's scary. Any other findings that you found to be noteworthy?
Yeah, there's it really was a very rich study, and like with any study, you're not quite certain when you go to field it, what's going to come back, what's really going to stand out, and we've been very excited to keep digging more and more into this. I think one of the things that stands out to me, and my prism for a lot of the things I say are interesting, is the fact that we're in the training business, and we want people to get better at what they do. Less than 20% of market research professionals planned for this career before they entered the industry. So it's an industry that a lot of people find along the way, sometimes as their first job, sometimes as they're doing something else for a few years. They don't necessarily like it as much as they thought they would, and they move into it, or maybe they get into a corporation and the corporation rotates them, and they eventually get in here. But only 17% of market research professionals planned on this before they entered the industry. The largest percentage took a position in market research as their first job and remained in the field. So again, for those people, they need to be trained. And it's one thing to learn on the job, but it's another thing to just take a few hours and get better at the building blocks of what you're now doing. 20% entered the industry through a mid-career pivot, either transferring from another role in their company or taking on a market research role when it was introduced for the first time in their company. So that was one thing that we found interesting. And I think everybody always likes to know, am I like everybody else? I mean, personally, I didn't train to get into this industry, and a number of other people I know didn't. But even today, where there are more market research courses in graduate school, it's the minority of people who are entering with that. Another thing that we found to be quite interesting is that when we ask people about the most satisfying aspects of their jobs, it's often said we're in a people business, and the number one thing that they're satisfied with is their relationship with their coworkers. I think there's a lot of implications around that as we're now in sort of a more of a hybrid setting. How do we keep people connected when we're not in the office today, every day? The freedom they have to innovate, 2/3 said that's one of the most satisfying parts of their job. People want to do what they're asked to do, but they also want to have the opportunity to create things that are new and beneficial to the companies they worked for. And then the opportunities they have to learn and grow. 61% said that's one of the most satisfying aspects of their job. So again, that sort of continuous learning, upskilling is something that's quite satisfying. The things that are least satisfying are opportunities for advancement. How can we give people the chance to take a step forward and take a step up in their companies? The level of communication they receive from executive management, and maybe the having run companies, maybe the thing that's always most frustrating to a lot of rank and file is the company's executive management in general. So that's one of the least satisfying. And then the last thing I would just say here is that in a finding that's consistent with the overall satisfaction people express toward market research as a profession, 2/3 of the respondents told us they're likely to recommend market research or insights as a career. So we do pretty well on that famous Net Promoter Score question. 26% say they'd be completely likely to, and 39% say that they would be very likely to. So I think we're in a business that people are satisfied with, and it's sort of telling others, hey, come on in, the water's warm, you should try it as well.
No, I think it's a fun industry, and I kind of got here in a roundabout way, but I was on a rotational program at Frito-Lay and Pepsi, which kind of landed me in market research. And it's fun. I'm curious. I'm always curious about data. I'm more about kind of understanding the business issue and how do you solve it, and hoping and having somebody else with the base fundamentals of market research. So tying this all back to your mission of training and development, can you kind of recap what you really learned about the importance of training in the eyes of research practitioners, those folks that you interviewed?
Yeah, so, look, I think one of the key things that emerges from this research is the importance of training and learning, and how it's a huge differentiator between the research professionals who are the most satisfied and those who are less so. And I think that the study, provides a blueprint for the areas that research professionals believe need to be a focus for the future. I would say the message here is both to those who are in managerial positions, whether you're in a research agency or a research technology company, or you're on the client side. I think there's a blueprint here that says, look, it's not a very big cost investment, but it has a huge rewards both for the people who work for you as well as for the organizations that you represent, and the data are very clear about that. We think that great organizations shape the lives of people who work for them, and they lead the market by example. And training development, we think, should be seen. It's not a cost, but as an investment that pays off. And just before we wrap up, I'm always looking for third-party sources that might have something to say about this. And there was a study that came out this year from McKinsey called "Performance Through People: Transforming Human Capital into Competitive Advantage." It came out in 2023, and I think it really demonstrates something that's quite important. They looked at 4 different types of companies, and there's 2 that I want to just mention in particular, based upon extensive analysis like McKinsey and those sorts of companies do. They found that companies that excel not only at pursuing profit and financial performance, but also they found that companies that excel by investing in people, including more training for employees, enjoy a range of superior business benefits. In fact, those that focus on financial performance plus people, they call them the P&Ps, profit and people, are really the leaders. This includes stronger and more consistent financial performance, as well as better recruitment and better retention, among other things that McKinsey identifies. So I think this investment in people, McKinsey helps to support the fact that it is something that is not just good to do for your employees, but it's good to do for the company as well. And I think as we navigate the ever-changing world of work and the ever-changing and rapidly changing world of market research and insights, one component remains stable, and that's investing in people as being both core and crucial and beneficial to everybody.
No, it's amazing. I think back to, it's a long time ago, but doing a big research project for a big restaurant chain. They identified that the stores that had the highest profitability per square foot also had the highest satisfaction with their employees. So it was definitely a win-win. So to quickly recap, today we've talked about a lot, how the MRII is an incredible resource, but there really is a big focus on teaching the fundamental building blocks for the overall market research industry. So based on the recent research within the MRII, it sounds like very encouraging news for those of us that are in the industry right now. And last but not least, I think that the face-to-face book sounds like a must-read for those, especially if the AMA is pushing it. I mean, it seems like it's going to definitely a hot topic. And people who want to know more about the MRII can go to their website and download the research that's there. I think that pretty much covers it. Anything else to add, Ed?
Just to say, our website is mrii.org, and you can find the research there. You can find more information about our courses, and you can also find more information about our ESOMAR webinars there.
That sounds like a great resource, and maybe even a resource to go convince your boss to send you through training. If I had to
there we go.
Imagine. I would imagine that's a big component. So a big thank you for joining us on today's episode. For you listeners out there, if you liked what you've heard today, please subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to share it with others who might also find it helpful, and get in touch with us if you'd like to join us on the show. So thank you for listening. Now that's significant.